What's going on, guys? It's Mirwin. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite albums from 2023. So if you guys haven't watched some of the past videos, we're talking about some of my favorite albums from 2023. Today the album we're going to be doing is Across the Spiderverse from MetroBoomin. So if you watched the past video, we kind of talked about what I like, what I didn't like, and then some of my favorite tracks from each album. We're just going to get straight into it here today. So this album, Across the Spiderverse, is the soundtrack or soundtrack themed album for the Across the Spiderverse movie Part 1 that came out earlier this year. Also a great movie. If you guys haven't had a chance to watch it, I definitely encourage you to check it out. But also a great movie. So I really loved the first movie, and I love the first soundtrack as well. Definitely on par with the Black Panther soundtrack that Kendrick did and TDE did. So definitely was super excited for the movie and also the soundtrack, just because the first soundtrack had so many good songs. Sunflower, one of the biggest songs of all time. That was a Diamond song, a super rare achievement. So definitely super hyped listening to this. Looking at the things I liked from this album before we get into kind of stuff I didn't like. I think again, if you hear me talk about albums I like, I got a bunch here on the wall here. A lot of the albums I like really have a shorter track list. I am always a huge fan of stewarding the listener's time well, and just really making sure we're not just putting filler on there, just filling out the track list just to get more streams. So we got a shorter track list here. If you're not, especially if you look at the regular and not the deluxe. But especially for the rap side, this is a 13 song album, under 50 minutes again, so that's a super short album, especially in the rap genre, where most of the time these days it's 15, 16, could even be considered a shorter album in rap, but it feels like 18, 20 is something that's super common as far as songs in the album, so really like that. I think, maybe a con from that is just that for the people that didn't like this album, there were less chances for people to like songs just because there's obviously less, but I mean that kind of comes with the territory of being a shorter track list. Something I really liked also, and if you watch some of the past videos you hear me talk about albums feeling cohesive sonically and all that, but this album I feel like was actually way more cohesive than the first Spiderverse soundtrack. And again, there's pros and cons to that. Obviously this album was all executive produced by MetroBoomin, who's a legendary hip-hop producer, so that makes sense in context as well, just it being more cohesive because you have the same producer looking over the whole album, so that makes a lot of sense, I think, and definitely I think makes this a better album than in that regard than the first Spiderverse soundtrack. Now kind of I think in a sense there are better songs on the first soundtrack, but I think if you're looking at this as an album as a whole, I think as a standalone, if this was unrelated to the Spider-Verse universe and this was just an album and you were comparing the song to song, I think the entire experience of this album is better just because again the cohesiveness, there's kind of again there's themes and stuff because of it's from the soundtrack of the movie, but I think one of the things from the first Spider-Verse soundtrack that is a strength of it is that it is so diverse, from the sound and song to song. But when you kind of look at it from an album perspective, I think that one's maybe a little more all over the place, where there are some it's really only cohesive in that all the songs are packaged together, whereas this one there is you listen to it and sonically it's cohesive, the production, the sounds that are in there, it all kind of makes sense, even if there are different styles in there as well. So that's what I liked about this album. Some of the things I didn't like, I think, like I said, kind of a pro, obviously, of being cohesive sonically is that, kind of you get this really consistent experience listening to the album. I think something that I liked better about the first one was that there was varied energy from song to song. I think a lot of the songs in this one, there was a lot of, not lows, but a lot more mid-tempo and more laid-back songs, whereas the first one I think really had some up-tempo, high-energy songs. I would have liked to have seen some more of that on this album. I think really Annihilate and Danger were probably the only ones, and you could probably say Am I Dreaming as well, are probably the only real songs in this album that are really up-tempo, and like you said, Am I Dreaming is really maybe not even that type of energy either. So I would have liked to see some more up-tempo, especially that was one of the things I really liked about the first album, was it had so much attacking energy. You think of Home or What's Up Danger, where it was just really really intense, which I thought was good. So I would like to see some more variation on energy, because I know Metro could have definitely still made it cohesive with the sound and production while still having that variation in the energy. Obviously there are things I don't know about, what direction they want him to take, but that's just something that I think I would have enjoyed more. The other thing that I really, one thing that I disliked about this one that I liked more than the first one was I think the first one had a lot better features. I know initially when the feature track list came out for this album, a bunch of people were probably a little disappointed. I saw some, people talking on the internet about it. Like I said, there really aren't as many big names on this one. Like I said, Juice WRLD was on the first one. Obviously, Sway Lee and Post Malone with Sunflower was like a huge song. So really, I don't think we're as many big names, quote unquote. You think like, A$AP Rocky is on 2 songs, 21 Savage is on 1. That's really kind of the big one. It feels like they got a little bit more of like those mid-tier or like B-list type artist features or whatever. Which, that being said, I think they also made a really good album, given that there weren't any like crazy features. But I think that's something that maybe I would have liked to see. We got Lil Wayne on there, but it kind of feels like, maybe there wasn't, obviously, Drake wasn't on the first one, but there didn't really feel like there was a huge song or really huge artist that was on the track list. So that'd be something maybe I didn't like. That'd be something maybe I didn't like specifically. Looking at some of my favorite songs here, so some of my favorite songs, we got Annihilate, Hummingbird, Am I Dreaming, and Nonviolent Communication. Hummingbird, probably one of my favorite songs of the year with James Blake. I'm a pretty big James Blake fan. I think he's got a great voice, has a really unique production style. So that'd probably be my favorite on this album is Hummingbird. I think for that alone, it was a really good album, just having that song on there. But I think, overall, really great album. Like I say, really enjoyable listen. Something I definitely return to a lot throughout the year. Definitely, I think there are some things this album does better than the first Spiderverse soundtrack, and some things that it doesn't do quite as well. But definitely still a great album. Definitely encourage you guys to check it out. Like I said, we're going to be doing a video for each album that I have in my top albums list of 2023. So we got a bunch more videos coming out. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.